This is a Triple J podcast.
G'day, it's another episode of Science with Dr. Karl. My name is Lucy Smith, and one of my favourite parts about doing this podcast is the fact that we get questions from all over Australia and we meet new people every single episode. In this one, we meet Ruby, who is blind and has a question about bionic eyes. We also meet Georgia in Townsville, who is a tattoo artist who has aphantasia, meaning she can't conjure up images in her head. We're going to learn more about them, plus answer a bunch of questions from around the country. Let's get into it. Dr. Karl, what's a question that you had yourself this week that you needed to Google or that you needed to find an answer to?
Why can't we tickle ourselves? Why is this thing tickling there? Is it something useful, or is it as useless as hiccups, which are absolutely essential for training your muscles how to move air in and out of your lungs? But once you're born, they're totally useless. And there are so many theories, and we still don't know. And part of the reason we want to know more about tickling is we're moving into the Internet of Things. And I suddenly realised, earlier this year I was in Europe trying to work this AI agent, and I suddenly realised that the Internet of Things has meant that Dubai is now a passport-free airport. I didn't realise it.
Wow.
You get off the plane, and as you get off the plane, the cameras know who you are because they've already worked out who you are and what seat you're sitting in, what order you're probably going to get off in anyway. And then they monitor your face and how you walk and the load you're carrying. And as you're going through what used to be security control, mate, they know who you are.
Oh my God,
already.
So you yourself are your passport.
But on the other hand, you've lost your privacy. So
yeah, I don't like that.
You know how you've got a whole bunch of, forget it, it's gone. And so maybe a couple of times a day they might say, look, show us your passport. Okay, you're that person, you're wearing different makeup, your hair's different, you're wearing glasses, whatever it is. But for example, you know how you have to have this sort of swipey card or that thing on your phone to pay for a bill? In many parts of China, it's your palm print. Covers everything. But on the other hand, if you've been a bad person and you said bad things about the government and they're saying you're not allowed to leave your local suburb of Wollongong for the next 5 years, and if you try to, then you get arrested. So read 1984 to get a chilling look into where we are now. But I'm irrationally optimistic. And so we still don't know why we laugh or tickle ourselves.
And amongst all of that, we still don't know why we're ticklish.
We don't know.
All right. Well, you've taken us down many avenues there, Dr. Karl. We're going to be getting into people's questions. You can send yours in right now on 0439 75 7555. And we're going to start here with Annalise in Oran Park. Annalise, what's your question?
Hi, Lucy. Hi, Doctor. I was just wondering, when we smoke marijuana, why do we go to like a deep train of thought? Why do we think of things differently, and why don't we do it when we're just normal?
Sure. Well, firstly, it has a long history. It is now legal in many states in the USA and is legal under certain circumstances in some of the states in Australia and for certain conditions. So there's a few different ways to look at it. One is that cannabis itself is a neurotransmitter in the brain. And we didn't know that till 15 years ago. So you ask yourself, how come this thing made of plant works on me, who's made of meat? And the thing is the coincidence that you happen to make this chemical. So that's the first step involved in there. So you're interfering with the normal pathways. The second thing is that it interferes with parts of your brain that give emphasis to the outside world. So you might be, as you walk down the street, be thinking, I'm looking for such and such a person, so you're looking at their faces. But another person might be thinking, I'm just wandering along and, gee, I'm enjoying the colours that people are wearing. Another person might be looking at the weather. So we all have different interpretations of the reality that's coming into us. What this can then mean is that, on top of that, in affecting the different brain areas, it changes your perception of time and what is important. And then suddenly you find yourself able to think different things. Part of that is that you've got, for the first time in a long time for many people, creative boredom. So it used to be that, and I remember when I was a kid, I had to carry around a book with me because every now and then we'd be doing something on a bus and I'd just sit there, I think, I'm bored, I want to read a book. And so I was one of the few people carrying a book, and most people didn't. But nowadays everybody's got a phone, and I remember I was walking into the university the other day, and every single person had a phone that they were looking at. I counted 84 of them in a row.
Wow.
And not one person was looking at the outside world. And I can understand the desire to learn more and be entertained, but on the other hand, you need a bit of creative boredom so that you can be what you are instead of just a mirror of the outside world. So all of these factors put together can then give you some degree of things being different in the world. There's a wonderful series of articles in the Scientific American. So unless if you look up Scientific American and then hallucinogenic drugs, and I'll take you through what happens when you, for example, taking other sort of substances and how much we don't know about it. And in some way, this is helping us get closer to understanding what consciousness is.
So you're saying if you take these substances sometimes and you don't have a stimulant like a phone or TV, that it can enhance that creative boredom?
Sure. Carl Sagan apparently was famous for taking, I think, cannabis. And he was a great thinker. And there are many people who have taken hallucinogenic drugs to become more creative. In fact, on one occasion, I was flying to Perth and I was going to take a taxi. And so I had a couple of drinks. And I was writing, and to my surprise, I thought, gee, this writing's going really well. And I showed it to some people later when I was sober, and they thought, oh, that's actually pretty good. But I realised that this is a bad pathway to go down because you're heading down liver disease. I think it was Ernest Hemingway who said, write when you're drunk, edit when you're sober, but I would not encourage people to take drugs. Let's just get that out of the way right now. And definitely do not break the laws of the land.
Let's do that as a PSA. Annalise, thanks for your question.
You got a PSA in that early, mate?
Yeah, exactly. One question in, we're doing
Thank
a
you,
PSA. Annalise, does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thanks for the examples. They were great.
Yeah, thanks. We got Sula in Meanjin, Brisbane. Sula, what do you want to know?
Hey, I just wanted to know, how come we get used to new smells so quickly? I just thought maybe the caveman in us would need to know where it is quick. You know.
The advantage of getting used to new smells is that you then think, okay, it hasn't killed me, that's good, I'm now ready for the other smell that might kill me. And so there is an evolutionary advantage in becoming rapidly habituated to new stimuli, because if they're not a threat immediately, you are ready for the next threat. The disadvantage, you're not ready for the long-term stuff. So, for example, at the steelworks in Wollongong, there's a long history of dumping microscopic amounts of cadmium into the environment in the past, and other people do it in other parts of the world, and we're not really wired up to pick up those stimuli. And so the fact that you might think, oh, there's a bit of a metallic smell, and then you ignore it, and it turns out that that's causing you long-term danger. So our senses are not perfect. Our senses are not perfect at picking up the things in the environment that can be bad to us. So, for example, I filled up the car with petrol the other day, and I suddenly thought, I'm smelling petrol. But if you're in America, in California, they've got a special pump that doesn't let you smell those fumes. Oh. So in Australia, it's okay for us to smell the benzene and get cancer. Right. So do you sort of see what I'm saying? That on one hand, it's good to get used to it, but on the other hand, we're not really wired up to pick up things that might hurt us on a long term slowly. So the human body's not perfect. Is that kind of answering the question, or have I left something out?
Oh, no, that's, well, because I'm in my first trimester of being pregnant, and smells are they're much more heightened. Like I can smell someone's BO from a few meters away.
Wow.
And it triggers my nausea.
Oh, dear. Do you have a bit of nausea and vomiting?
Yeah.
And if people told you the boring stuff that, bad for you but good for the baby, you'll have a strong baby?
Yeah,
have they told you that?
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I threw up the other day because of someone's pee being so potent.
Unfortunately, they are right, and unfortunately, you're the one vomiting, and deepest sympathies.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Sula. Hopefully you don't get used to it.
Yeah.
Don't get used to it too much. I've got Mitch in Meanjin, Brisbane. This is actually good to piggyback off of Sula's question. Mitch, you tend to turn to something when you're feeling a bit nauseous. What's your question?
Good morning, doctors. My question is there something about flat lemonade that can help you feel better when you're sick?
It does seem to work, and I don't know why. And I think it's a combination, mainly on kids, that lemonade is so precious that if you get any of it, oh my God, it's such a wonderful thing, and therefore it must be making you better. And there's part of that hangover from childhood that then goes through into adulthood. I don't think there are any real medical advantages apart from the fact that it's giving you water, which is always a good thing to have. And when you are sick, you are burning up energy faster than normal, so having a few extra calories doesn't hurt. But you got any thoughts on this, Dr. Lucy?
I don't know, but I think there's a nostalgia element as well because,
the nostalgia.
you know, my housemate, his mum always used to give him lemonade when he was sick, and now flat lemonade when he's feeling a bit under the weather.
That's exactly the same for me. Well, my mum always used to do it. That's why I still do it today, and that's why I thought if there was anything in there.
There may well be. You've given me some homework, which will be about 3 hours work for me, and I'll try and get to it.
And I swear some of my friends, when they're hungover or if they have been pregnant as well and going through what Sula's been through, they've said one of the best things is just a cold can of lemonade and just sipping on it slowly, just little sips can really help.
Well,
I never questioned it because it was just one of those mum things where your mum says, oh, yeah, this will help you feel better. And you go, yep, cool.
Yep.
But with regard to the slow sips, you are changing the microenvironment in your mouth. The bacteria are new bacteria every 20 minutes. And so in between each sip of sugary stuff, have a little sip of water just to wash it away. I know that's boring, isn't it, that stuff?
I know, but weirdly also as well, I was hungover recently.
What?
And I know, can you believe?
Oh, my God.
And sometimes I find having the lemonade, it actually promotes burping. And sometimes I think burping can make you feel better when you're hungover or gassy. Is it something to do with that, I wonder?
That's also another possibility. The human body is truly complex, and what works for you, it might not work for somebody else, but if it works for you, go for it if it isn't bad for you.
Mitch,
Dr. Mitch.
we're going to keep working away at this one, okay?
That's a
Thank you.
big one, Dr. Mitch.
On 0439 757 555, Sarah, you said, when I woke up after being in a coma for 2 weeks, all I wanted was a lemonade, icy pole. Maybe it's a sugar and water thing.
Yes, the icy poles work. I remember when we had kids in the kids' hospital who needed a drink because they were dehydrated but wouldn't. You give them a icy pole.
Yeah.
Oh, man, they're into it.
Oh,
Works.
also really good if you're recovering from wisdom tooth surgery or tonsils. It's a treat. Now you got me feeling like a lemonade icy pole, Sarah, so thank you very much. We've got Holmesy in Tempe. Holmesy, my guy, what do you want to know?
Yeah, morning, doctors. First time, long time.
Good morning.
Morning. I was just wondering, like, within Earth's atmosphere, why is it, like, no matter the temperature on the ground, if it's 40 degrees, why is it when you go up closer to the sun, it gets colder?
Because, firstly, the amount that you're getting closer to the sun by is microscopic. Out of 140 million kilometres, you're getting closer by 1 kilometre maximum. Yeah, maybe 10. Okay. Secondly, the term is called the adiabatic lapse rate, ADIABATIC lapse rate. As you get higher up, the atoms the molecules in the atmosphere, they're further apart from each other. So down at ground level, there's a certain number of molecules of oxygen and nitrogen in each cubic metre. And when you get 4 kilometres up, it's about 40% less. I came across this on Mauna Kea, and they said you might have a bit of difficulty walking, and I found I could walk or talk, but not do both. And I've spoken to astronomers who sit there with a cylinder of oxygen, so there's less air up there. And Richard Feynman said everything is made of atoms which, if they're too close, try to move apart, and if they're too far apart, try to get together. So the atoms and the molecules like to stay a certain distance apart, but they can't as they get higher up because they just have to fill a bigger volume, and so therefore they cool down. The rate they cool down is 10 degrees C. This is this adiabatic lapse rate. 10 degrees C per kilometre if the air is dry. So if you're in a desert region, or about 6.5 degrees drop for each kilometre up you go if it's sort of moist, like in the tropics. So why does it get colder? Because the air molecules are further apart. They need energy to be further apart from each other. They get this energy from the air. You are closer to the sun, but on the other hand, it's only a microscopic thing. So that is a very, very minor effect. Does that help?
Yeah. It's just something I've always wondered.
Yeah, because you are getting closer to the sun. It does sound wrong, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Thanks, Holmesy. Tiana in Bayswater, you got a question about burping. What do you want to know?
Yes, for years I don't even know when it sort of started, but I was talking with my partner the other night and had a drink of water, and I burp every single time I drink water. And I know with like fizzy lit drinks like lemonade, and we were talking before, how that can make you burp with the carbon dioxide. I was like, there isn't really much in water, so why do I burp?
Off the top of my head, I don't know. Maybe it's because you're swallowing air. On one hand, apples are notorious for causing burping, that you tend to chew them and there's a lot of empty space, and as you chew the apple mush down, you take a bit of air with you. I definitely do not know. Maybe you've picked up the habit of swallowing air at the same time. I don't find nothing wrong with burping, and in some cultures in the world, burping is regarded as politeness and appreciation of the good meal, or in this case, the fine water that your host has given you from the tap. But so it's a definite don't know. Have you done this all your life, or has it changed?
Sorry?
Has this burping after drinking water, has it been with you ever since you were a kid, or has it changed in recent times?
For as long as I can remember, and I can drink out of like hot top or from a glass, or even through a straw, and I'd still burp.
Wow. Okay, so now I've got to do some more homework on burping.
So we've got being ticklish, we've got burping.
Ticklish.
Tiana, you're adding to the list, okay?
Gotcha.
You're welcome.
Thank
Yeah.
you, Tiana. Thank you.
Yeah, you're giving him homework. We've got Dean in Mient in Brisbane. Dean, what do you want to know?
Hey guys, I was just wanting to know if you needed quantum physics to recreate the human brain.
Yes, and no, and yes. What's his name? Penrose. You got a pen and paper?
No.
Okay, but remember the name Penrose, Penrose, and type into your search engine Penrose, quantum, and consciousness. Now, Penrose is a really smart guy. We've actually had him here on Triple J, and he's done very clever things in many different fields. And having won the Nobel Prize a few years ago, he decided to go into something even harder, which is consciousness. And he's teamed up with some anaesthetists, and they think that they've found some sort of quantum effects happening with the human thinking. And specifically, they're looking at a link between the gas xenon, Xenon, and that can act as an anaesthetic gas, and changes in the microtubules in the brain, in the nerves. Microtubules are little pipes inside cells that carry stuff from here to there. And apparently, they say they think they're seeing quantum effects. So to answer your question of, is quantum mechanics necessary for making the brain work? Maybe. The point is we don't know how the brain, we don't know where consciousness is. We don't know. Nobody knows. And maybe Penrose has stumbled across something, and maybe it's a dead end. We don't know. There you are. So you're in a definite don't know. This time I don't have to do any more homework. And there's a really good article in the New Scientist. So if you type in Penrose, quantum, consciousness, and New Scientist, and there's a nice article, it'll take you about half an hour to read, and you think, oh my God, there might be something there.
Excellent.
Great. Thanks, Dean. And we've got Ben in Zetland. Dr. Ben. Got a question about drones. Talk us through it.
Nothing physiological, unfortunately, but I'm just wondering, I've seen this company, it's based in Australia, they make some kind of anti-drone technology. It looks kind of like a speed radar gun kind of thing, but it apparently stops drones. I don't really understand how it makes them stop working or what it does. Do you know anything about it?
Yes, I was just reading about it, believe it or not, this morning in the Southeast China Post, which is a magazine that comes, a daily newspaper that comes out of Hong Kong.
Yeah.
And they were talking about something that the Chinese government is working on. There's also an article on, I read both of them this morning, in a website called Interesting Engineering. In each case, they were talking about using microwaves to stop drones, and alternatively, a way around this would be that the drone would trail behind it an optic fibre. So let's just start. So you've got this drone. It's a thing with propellers. It's got a battery, or it's got a hydrocarbon engine, and it can fly for a while. And it can do things while it's up there. And it's got its own internal electronics. If you shove enough microwaves at it, you can disrupt the working of the internal electronics. So depending on how much electromagnetic radiation or microwaves you throw at it, you'll either, in the first case, cause nothing, and then maybe a little bit of heating. And then as you crank the power up more and more, it wouldn't do anything to a human except warm them up. So I've spoken to veterans who have been on ships in cold climates and have actually stood in front of the radar units to warm up. Oh, my God. But nothing happened. And so then it disrupts the electronics, the communications first, and then the internal electronics. And you have got military-industrial levels of microwaves, way, way, way beyond what's used for the microwave communication network that runs around Australia, carrying telephone signals, and way beyond what you get in a microwave oven. So that's one alternative. And it has the advantage that you can blast a large area simultaneously, and if there happen to be 50 drones, you can knock them all out at once. The other thing I read about was that they were using lasers one at a time, but that means that a laser has to be manned, has to be aimed, has to be targeted on each drone for, say, 10 seconds. And it's got to track it around. And then you might have yourself a whole bunch of drones, and it might be just too much for it. And then they were saying another way around this was that if you could harden the drone by having a metal shell, like a Faraday cage, and then for comms, talking back to the base, it trails behind it a very light optic fibre cable. So this is a new, fast-moving area of technology that, because it's partially driven by the military, is moving really fast because they've got infinite budgets. So I suggest reading those articles in the Southeast China Daily Post, as well as Interesting Engineering. That'll give you more information on it.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ben. Oh, my God. Dr. Karl, you've been giving so many recommendations this morning.
I'm trying to give them homework. They've already given me 2 bits of homework, burping and tickling. Come on, give me a break.
Josh in the Mornington Peninsula. Josh, what do you want to know this morning?
G'day, doctors. Just wondering about the water captured by regenerative desiccant wheels. Is it possible to capture and filter that water so it can be used for something else?
Sure. So we're talking here about the concept of getting water out of the air. And air is 80% nitrogen molecules, which look like little barbells. You know, nitrogen atom, a stick, another nitrogen atom. 20% oxygen atoms, same sort of barbell thing, and a varying percentage of water molecules, which look like little boomerangs. And depending on the temperature, water can hold, as the temperature goes higher, as the temperature goes higher, the air can carry more water molecules before they have to come out of solution and then appear as individual droplets. On the bottom left-hand side of Africa, you've got the Namibian desert, and you've got creatures there that live entirely in this desert area by capturing the water out of the air that comes in off the ocean. And they can live off that entirely. It's harder for humans because we need more water to get by, and they've got special adaptations to try to preserve the water. But yes, it is possible to catch some degree of water out of the air. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, more so we use a desiccant wheel to capture that water, and then it's vented into the atmosphere. You hold your hand in front of that vent and you'll have water pouring off your hand within a minute.
Wow.
Wondering if that water can be used for something, or if it's just like waste that has to go back into the air.
If it's just plain H2O molecules, you can drink it, sure. How much would you generate per hour from what volume of air?
On our larger machines, we would probably put out litres an hour, like 2 to 3 litres of water an hour. When these machines are in a wet environment, they pull the wet air through, feed it through the desiccant, and then pump out this exhaust air that we can't dry. And I can hold my hand in front of that and have droplets pouring off my fingertips within a minute.
And is this for some sort of industrial use where you have to keep a low moisture environment for some sort of chemical process or some goods to be stored?
Yes, mainly for blasting and coating of water tanks and gas tanks and things like that, but also can be used for when we're drying flooded buildings.
Okay, so that's another alternative. Not so useful in Australia when we're in a drought, but hey, creatures in the Namibian desert survive entirely off it.
We've got Ruby in Sydney. Dr. Ruby, what's your question?
Hi, so I am blind and I just wondered how they could make a bionic eye with my condition. So my retinas don't work at all, they're destroyed, but my optic nerve still works. So how could that happen with the bionic eye?
And has it been this way since birth, or did it happen during life?
No. So I had like leukemia and I had a brain bleed, which made my retinas basically, destroyed.
And
so
how do you recover from the leukemia?
that was fine. It's just the blindness is left over. So
Okay.
I had full sight before that.
Okay, so there's 3 parts of your body
Yeah,
that are incredibly blood dependent to survive. And that is the heart muscle, and the brain, and by extension, the retina, which is part of that. So all you need is a short-term interruption to the blood supply, and then the retina dies. Bit of anatomy here. The eye, about 24 millimetres in diameter when you're an adult, and the retina is a layer 1/3 of a millimetre thick that turns light into electricity. Now, here's the weird thing. You have cells in your fingertips and in your brain and in your muscles and in your liver and spleen that have the DNA for growing another retina. The first time we were able to actually induce that properly was in 2021 in October, where we had a human male who had an infection and as a result couldn't make insulin, and we modified their DNA to be able to make insulin again. All the information needed to give you a functioning retina is there in other cells in your body and almost certainly in the cells around your eyeball. But we do not have the technology yet to make them grow a new retina for you. We did do it with this guy who, and by the way, when I say for this guy, the technology was 20 scientists, 20 years, and $50 million. And so almost certainly there are people working on this to give you a biological implant, which is far superior. There have also been working on electrical implants. And so you have a camera pointed outside world, it picks up the world, it generates an electrical signal. You then feed that into the visual cortex of your brain, and it has to be decoded. And then you've got the problem with getting it across into the brain, because if you've got wires, then bacteria can run in those wires into your brain and give you infections. So people are working on ways both electronic and biological, and I think both of them will be coming, and I just hope they hurry up, and for you especially, Ruby. There is hope on the horizon. The first time I read of this was in 1977, and I remember sitting in an operating theatre with a patient. We were pouring stuff into their heart arteries, and there was the front cover of Nature magazine, and I looked at it and I thought, what the hell is that? And it was an X-ray of a human skull with a socket, like a socket the size of a golf ball stuck in the back of the guy's head. And the guy had accidentally been hit by a shotgun blast to the face. And what they had done was wired a primitive camera back in 1977, into his visual cortex. And the plug, it was the size of a golf ball. And he had a grid of vision that was about 8 by 8. Not millions by millions, but 8 by 8. And that was the first step way back then.
Yeah.
I wish I could... There's something coming. I wish I could say it's available tomorrow. But there is something coming, so be brave.
Thank you.
And by the way, do you still dream in shapes? Do you still see shapes in your dreams?
Yeah, I still see in my dreams, and I even, when I think, I still see in my head, which is quite strange. But
and have your other senses become more heightened to compensate for the lack of vision?
Yeah, definitely hearing and my, feeling things. I'm much more sensitive.
Wow. Are you one of those people who can make little clicking noises and navigate around the world by the echoes?
Yeah, I can hear doors and walls and things like that. So, yeah.
Mate, we need you as a audio producer in the ABC to bring the standard up.
Ruby, thank you so much, and thanks for telling your story as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you,
We've got Lila here on the Gold Coast. Lila, you've got an electric blanket for the winter. What have you noticed?
I've got my electric blanket back out since it's been a lot cooler. And I've noticed that I just start electric shocking everything, especially my car, pots and pans when I'm in the kitchen. And I feel like I'm a bit more static than usual. Is that normal?
It's more normal in winter. Is it related to the electric blanket, or are they both, your static and the electric blanket, related to the colder weather? I'm guessing that they're both related to colder weather. So it's colder, you've got an electric blanket, and simultaneously it's colder and drier, and so therefore you're getting more of the static. I haven't heard of cases of people using electric blankets and suddenly generating more static. I don't think but it's not impossible. But I mean, anything's possible in the human body. Is it really annoying?
A little bit sometimes. Every time I get into my car, I shock it.
Okay, so you can do tricks like touch a bit of the metalwork first with your shoe, and you can buy special conductive shoes that they use in oil refineries that have got graphite in them that conduct electricity so they drain off the charge. And so you wear these special shoes. They're not particularly attractive, I'm sorry to say. And then you touch something. Actually, I just suddenly thought, there's not much metal on cars nowadays. There's so much plastic, but you can touch the metal of the wheel with your car and you drain off your static electricity, then you get in. And then when you're getting out, open the door first and then put your foot out on the ground first. And then, actually, that's really hard. I just suddenly realised I've gone down a bad pathway. Forget the last thing I said. Sorry.
Lila, you're stuck with it for the winter.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Lila.
And we've got Gavin in Mianjin. Gavin, a few people getting sick. I feel like I'm getting a little bit of a throat moment. What do you want to know?
Well, see, I'm on the similar lines of like drinking lemonade, flat lemonade when you're sick. An old wives' tale that I've heard is that just when you start to feel better, while you're having like a cold or flu, that night just pour yourself like a stiff drink or two, and that it will help kill the last of the bacteria. Is there any truth to that? Please.
No. Okay, on one hand, physiologically, there are no physiological benefits from having alcohol ever, and it's a bit of a poison. But on the other hand, there's the psychological benefits of relaxing you a bit in an awkward situation. Just a little bit can help. And then on the other hand, we do have the Christian Bible says, drink a little alcohol for the good of thy belly. And so following that, I've kind of given the kids a little bit of Benedictine or some such high-octane sweet alcohol whenever they're a bit crook all their lives. And I don't think it hurt and it made them feel better. But I definitely do not think that alcohol, from what I've read, in any way improves the situation with regard to the bacteria and the infectious agent. But just a little tiny touch makes you feel like, oh, I deserve to get better. But just only a little bit.
Or maybe it makes you more sleepy, so then you can sleep easier.
True. But on the other hand, alcohol will make you sleep more readily, but the quality of the sleep is not as good. So
Fair enough.
You have to get into that situation where you just have a small amount of alcohol and you sip it slowly, and with each one you think, oh, this is fantastic, as opposed to, I've just had 2 gallons. That's terrific. I'll feel better. No, just go for a small amount and enjoy it massively.
All right. Sounds good to me.
Thanks, Gavin. Matt in Wollongong, what do you want to know?
G'day, guys. I'm just wondering, light is obviously a particle, photons, but they also have the dual split experiment where they've proven that it acts like a wave. So I was just wondering if you could enlighten me and help me out with that one.
Luckily, I've done a few podcasts on this. Go to Shirtloads of Science. And over the years, I've done many podcasts with quantum physics professors, and I'm still confused. I've done one with I forget her name. She's a second or third year student at the University of Sydney, but she educated me a lot about the dual slit experiment. What you do is you have a beam of light and then you run it through, it runs up against a bit of cardboard, and you've got 2 narrow slits parallel to each other, maybe with a razor blade, and it seems to turn into waves as it goes through those slits, and you can even get one particle of light, one photon, and somehow it goes through both slits, even though they're millimetres or centimetres apart. And this is confusing, and she gives a very good explanation. I'm still confused about it. So let me just give you the simple summary. Number 1, to understand quantum mechanics, don't try to use normal thinking. It's just wrong. It doesn't work. You've got to put yourself into another form of thinking. I'm not advocating drugs, but whatever. So you have to use that other form of thinking. That's the first thing. And secondly, I learned this, which is, I think, is very wise. Light is a wave when it travels. So between the surface of the sun and your eyeball, it's a wave. But it is a photon when it is born or dies. So as it's generated at the surface of the sun, at that instant it's a photon, then instantly it turns into a wave. And for that wave time has no meaning. For us, it arrives at our eyeball 8.5 minutes later. For the wave, there is no time. It arrives instantly. So this is what I mean, but you've got to think differently about quantum. And then as it ends up in your eyeball and then lands on a molecule of 11 cis retinal, that wave dies and in that instant turns into a photon. So I'll say it again. Light is a wave when it travels, but a photon when it is born and when it dies. Happy reading.
Right.
It is hard. And Marcus Chown, Marcus Chown. He's written a bunch of books on quantum. He's one of my go-to guys as well.
Righto. All right, cool. Thanks for that.
Thanks, Matt. Georgia in Townsville, what's your question?
Hi. So I have a question about a cognitive phenomenon, aphantasia. So I personally have it. I can't visualize anything like visually in my mind. I just want to know what the process for that is if you know it, and you can help me out figuring that out.
Okay, so Lucy, if I say, imagine you're on a Pacific island and you're lying on the beach and all you can see is your feet in front of you and the yellow sand and the blue ocean and a different shade of blue in the sky. You can kind of visualise that?
Mm-hmm.
Can you visualise it, Georgia?
I can only barely see black and white shadow or outlines.
Right.
Not even,
So
honestly.
people with aphantasia, they can't generate the visual images. And this was first noted by a relative of Charles Darwin about a century ago, who then asked all of his mates at Oxford or Cambridge University, and that most of them seemed to have it, so he thought that everybody had it, and then he started running across people who could visualise images, and he thought they were the abnormal ones. Okay, both are normal. So what we have found by doing MRI scans is we say to people, Georgia, hop in this MRI machine. Now, think about the scene that I described. We get Lucy to think about the scene that I described while she's in an MRI machine. Lucy and I will both have heaps of visual activity, electrical activity in the visual cortex, and you'll have bugger all. Why that happens, we don't know. But that means that once you know you've got it, you can then live your life to use that in a way that's best optimised. You know, there's that old saying, play to your strengths. So don't try to use visualisation as a memory aid or learning, but find other pathways. There's websites on this. Did you find that it interferes with your life much? And when did you first discover you had it?
So, funny enough, I'm an artist. So it was pretty easy for me to figure out because I always need to use referencing. I always need to have all this extra stuff. It helps being a tattoo artist. Having the references is always important.
Wow.
But having the visualization of it, when someone's like, hey, can you visualize this character for me or this concept? And I'm like, oh, actually, I can't. And I was talking to another artist friend. He's like, oh, yeah, that's aphantasia.
Now, look, I wouldn't worry about it being an artist because one of my mates is a very moderately famous artist, and only recently did we discover that person is colourblind.
Wow.
And they've been painting great paintings for a long time. So go with the strengths. Play to your strengths on this one.
Definitely do that because mentally for audio stuff, I'm really good, but visually not so much.
Wow. Georgia, thank you so much for sharing.
Thank you.
Yeah. Dr. Karl, you've been answering our science questions here on Triple J. For the full episode and for previous ones, all you've got to do, you can listen back literally anytime. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, the Triple J app and Triple J's YouTube channel. Karl, we'll do this again next week.
And I think the call-in is ring into Triple J Science Hour so we can increase your workload and give you homework. Is that the thing?
Homework,
Yeah,
yes.
we'll give you homework.
And Dr. Karl will also have homework for next week.
Aww.
And that's it. Thanks so much for listening to this episode of Science with Dr. Karl. No matter where you are listening from, I would love you to engage in a small way. Maybe you can send this episode to a friend, copy the link, send it on. Maybe you want to like, maybe you want to subscribe. Maybe you're listening on YouTube and you want to leave a comment of something you discovered this week or even something you would like Dr. Karl to answer for next week. We see it all, we check it all. Thanks so much for hanging out with us and being a part of the Science with Dr. Karl fam. I'm Lucy Smith. This episode was produced by Josh Brennan and we'll catch you next week. Bye.
Dave Marchese here from the Triple J Hack team. Hey, if you love Dr. Karl's podcast like I do, you might enjoy the Hack podcast as well. Each day, we bring you the news that matters to you, from the latest science on climate change to what's happening in politics and news around the world. The Hack Podcast. It's your daily fix of the news you need to know. Get it wherever you're listening now.